Hello, Midas back again with another TypeScript video, and today we'll be looking at creating our own types from scratch. Let's hit it. So if you open the file we were using in the previous video, the advanced.ts file we were working in, we spoke about object types, which is what you can see here. So if you look at this person variable here, we actually don't have any types defined on it, and this is what we'll be doing in this video. So in this video we'll be looking at interfaces. So what are interfaces? Interfaces are kind of like types, so where you create your own types. So it's like a contract between you and TypeScript. So you give TypeScript the terms of the contract, and it holds you accountable for it. So now we'll be looking at creating our first interface. So to create your interface, you use the keyword interface. So you go interface, and then you give it you give your name, your interface a name. So what best practice says is your interfaces should start with an uppercase letter. So let's say we want to actually let's create an interface for this person variable that we have here. So let's call it person with capital P, and then this is your interface definition. So what you're saying to TypeScript, you say, okay, create a new type. You're telling with this keyword here, interface, of the name person, and then you have your curly braces there. Now, so this would be inside here would be where you specify the terms of your contract. So your contract would be something like, okay, my person interface should have a name, and that name should be of type string. So now to put that into the code, you write name there and then the type of it. So you said you want the type of the name to be a string. So looking at this guy here, we have a name, and the value on this is a string. So if you look at the syntax between these two things here, they look similar. So this one says name there, and you have your colon, but in here you have the value. Same thing there and same thing there, and they're separated by commas. The difference between these two is this one is actually a value of person, where this is your object, and then here it's like you're defining the body of your object. So but the syntax is a little bit different. On this one here you have your name here, and on this side it's the type of that particular thing for your interface, since you're creating your new type. When you use it here, this would be your name, and on this side it's your value, and here you separate your different properties with a comma, while here you separate it with a semicolon. So let's just do it for the other ones. So you're saying surname, you also want that to be of type string, your semicolon, and then you also want your age there to be of type number. Now, why is this important? So let me just cut this guy out here and show you why this is actually important. So I'll continue down here, and I'll remove this guy here. So now, let's create our person here, but we want our person variable to be of type person, but this person over here, these two are not the same. So TypeScript is case sensitive, so having person with a capital P and person with a lower case p are not the same thing. So Now we want to give our type person the type of person. So we have it there, and then we can actually give it a value there, like that. So continuing from the values we had before from the previous video. Actually, let me do it this way. Let me paste this guy here. Const person. I just call this person 1 equals to that, and then I'll call this person 2 and give it that. So if you look at these two things here, these two, you have person 1 and person 2. The difference between person 1 and person 2 is that I actually defined the type of person 2. We don't see any syntax going red around this guy here. This is because since we didn't define a type for our object, it infers it. So it'll try to make the type itself. So if I hover on this, you can see it's saying the type is of that. You have your name being a string, your surname being a string, and your age also your age being a number. But if I hover on this guy, it just tells me that you have the type of a person. It doesn't actually know that this is a type of a person on this side. But this one knows, and since we don't have anything defined inside the object down here, this guy goes red because it's saying your type empty object is missing the following properties from type person. So it's saying you don't have a name, you don't have a surname, and you don't have an age, which is the contract that you told it. So you said your contract for person was the contract between you and Typescript. You're saying the person should always have a name, always have a surname, and should always have an age. So if you press command space on your Mac, sorry, not command space, control space on your Mac, or I think it's control space on your Windows machine, you'd have it shows you which your properties in there, so you can actually add them there. So we said the age should be a number, so we can give our age the value of 24, and then you can do it again, and then now you have your name there, same thing, and then you give it your name, Technanimals, and your surname could be software. So there we go. Now it doesn't complain anymore. But let's try and make it complain and not and do something that's not within our contract. So let's say we go 1 for that guy. So as we can see here, Typescript is complaining and telling us that surname should be of type string. So it is holding us to the contract that we defined up there. So since we told it that the property string should be the property surname should be of type string, it's holding us accountable there. So all we have to do here is make it a string, and then voila. Same thing goes for this guy here. If you add it as a string, it's going to tell you that this needs to be a number because of the way we defined our contract. So let's just take that back here. Let's say we want to add something else to person 2. Let's say we want to add, maybe, what can we add to a person? Maybe let's just say date of birth. I'm just going to call it DOB, and then maybe I'll say 1993 04. That's the person's date of birth, but it's complaining now. It's saying object literal may only specify known properties, and DOB does not exist on type person. So we have a property here in person 2 of DOB, which is actually not defined in our contract there. So it's holding us accountable to everything. everything you have should be there. So you define these three properties here. That means they should be here on this side. Nothing more, nothing less. So now, for me to fix this guy here, is either I decide to remove this guy, and if I don't need it, or add this property to our interface. So we can do both. So now I can start off by just cutting that out, and the red is gone. Now let's say you really need this property to be there on the type of person. So what you do, you make your property there, dob, dob, and then you said you want the type of this to be what? Here you wrote it as a string, so if you go string, that should work. So now, if you're working with this and you don't know which types, which properties you're going to need later on, you can just add them as you go or remove some as you go if you don't need them anymore. So one other thing that this helps with is when you're working with other people. So when you're working with other people, and let's say you're working with a school, right? And then you have, in a school you have different departments. And let's say you have your maths department and your physics department, and you are actually working in the maths department, and the physics department uses things from the maths department. So let's say you have your own maths department project defined here that you're going to share with the physics department. So these contracts that you have, let's say you have your interface here and you're saying the physics interface, there's not the physics interface, the physics department should use this interface when you're using your code and things like that. So that way you don't have to some communication is cut short because they can already see what they need to do in the code and when using your code and things like that. So it helps a lot in those kind of situations. So you can also now, if we look at our teams up here, Liverpool and Chelsea, let's say now we don't want to store just names as part of our teams anymore. Let's say now we actually want our team to be of type player, and players need to have a certain format. So let's create our interface for player. We go interface, and our interface is going to be player. And what does our player have? Our player has a name. That's the contract. And then our player has a surname. Our player also needs to have a jersey number. So you can go jersey number, and that should be a number. Makes sense. And then we also need an age for our player. Then we need an age, which is also going to be a number. So now we want to store our team, and our team should have a list of players, so an array of players. So in this case, what we're going to do, we define our team as const, and then we call it team should have what? Player. It should be a list of players, and then we have this array. So now we can't use strings anymore. Let me just expand this over here. So now we can't have, let me just copy this guy here and see. So now having those values on that side doesn't actually work fine for us. So what this should be, it should actually be an object. So we know how we define our objects. Our objects are have curly braces, and now our thing needs to have a name. So it needs to have an age first of all. Let's say the the person is like what, 28, and then the name of the person is going to be, sorry, uh Pedro. The surname is going to be Rodriguez. Rodriguez. And then what's missing in here? Jersey number. The jersey number is going to be, oh, that's actually a number. 20, I think his jersey number 11 right now. Not sure. And so now we have our player being that. So you have our player here in the first, so you can actually still separate it by a comma. I'm going to do this here. Let me just do this over here. I'm going to make it be on a separate line, which is actually which is allowed. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it down there, and copy that and paste it down there. So now we can just change the values of these guys here. This guy is 30, 230, 30, and which is going to be Virgil, and we change that guy there, Van Dyke, and Virgil has jersey number 4, and then we can have our other keeper. You can just a goalkeeper. He's got us. We have a keeper here, and then our keeper can be Iker Casillas. And then age 30 there. Sorry, that's 35. And jersey number 1. So if you want to have lists of different things, and then that's how you make your types. Now here you want to have a team, a team which is a list of players, which is how you define them there, and they should have all the properties in your player contract, which is what you have there. And then here we wanted it to be a list of player names, which when we didn't need all that extra information, now we do. You can also just change this guy over here. Let me just copy that there. Just change that here, and then I can just change the string into player, and that still works because doing it, defining it this way, your array this way, and this way here are the same thing. So yes, sir.